Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected 2 Republicans from serving on a select committee to probe the January 6th Capitol breach. Minority Leader McCarthy says the Republicans may pursue their own investigation. Senator Rand Paul plans to file a criminal referral against Dr. Fauci. He says Fauci lied to Congress about funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Moms across the country are coming together over a shared mission to fight for the survival of America, unite and empower parents. One mom says the lions have awoken. Now parents are fighting to take back their kids' education. A minor has died after attempting a dangerous challenge circulating on TikTok. And a new investigation reveals how the social media site discovers what content you like. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected 2 Republicans from serving on a select committee to probe the January 6th Capitol breach. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy quickly responded. He says unless Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republican nominees, Republicans will not participate.
2 Republican lawmakers, Jim Banks and Jim Jordan, were rejected from serving on the January 6th committee on Wednesday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she made the decision because Banks and Jordan objected to electoral votes during the joint session of Congress on January 6th. Pelosi said in a statement, "With respect for the integrity of the investigation, with an insistence on the truth, and with concern about statements made and actions taken by these members, I must reject the recommendations of Representatives Banks and Jordan to the Select Committee." House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy responded right away.
Speaker Pelosi has taken the unprecedented step of denying the minority party's picks for the Select Committee on January 6th. This represents something that has not happened in the House before for a Select Committee by the historian. It's an egregious abuse of power. Pelosi has broken this institution.
Pelosi planned to create a 9/11-style commission to investigate the breach, but the bill was blocked by Republicans in the Senate. She then pushed for the formation of a committee. Every Democrat and 2 Republicans voted last month to create the Select Committee. Pelosi later named 7 members, all Democrats except for Representative Liz Cheney. She gave McCarthy the ability to recommend 5 other representatives. McCarthy recommended Banks and Jordan, along with Congressman Rodney Davis, Kelly Armstrong, and Troy Nehls. Pelosi said she would accept McCarthy's other 3 choices.
Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
Republicans have signaled they would pursue their own investigation of the facts.
The FBI saying today hackers working for the Chinese Communist Party accessed the IT systems of at least 13 American pipeline operators between 2011 and 2013. The agency says the hackers' ultimate goal was to physically damage the pipelines or disrupt their operation. NTD spoke with experts about the news.
The FBI is telling American pipeline operators to secure their systems against foreign threats. It says hackers working for the Chinese Communist Party accessed at least 13 business systems between 2011 and 2013, aiming to damage pipelines or disrupt their operations.
Where you can defeat a nation by attacking its critical infrastructures, shutting down the power grid, shutting down oil and gas pipelines.
The hackers targeted specific employees with fake emails and other methods to get access to the pipelines. So now the FBI wants all general IT systems to be separated from the systems that control pipeline operations.
And that's very similar to what we saw with that legacy VPN device that Colonial Pipeline kept talking about after they found out how they got hacked.
There's also the problem of pipelines using dial-up modems with little to no security or monitoring, a hacker's dream.
And that's going to take, organizations a sizable amount of time and effort to get done.
Colonial Pipeline, America's largest oil line, was hacked and shut down in May. Fuel shortages and long gas lines followed. Colonial blamed a hacker group called DarkSide for the attack, paying a ransom of $4.4 million.
Provides half the fuel, not just for the eastern coast of the United States for civilian purposes, but for all of the military bases on the East Coast.
Pry wants protection for critical services to be included in the upcoming infrastructure package. Paul Graney, NTD News.
The world's largest oil producer, Saudi Aramco, is facing cyber extortion. It confirmed today that a contractor leaked data from the company. Now it's still facing a $50 million ransom demand. The oil firm did not say which contractor was affected, nor whether the information was hacked or if it was leaked out another way. It says the data was not from a breach in its own systems and that it has no impact on operations or the company's cybersecurity program. A page accessed by the AP on the darknet claims the extortionist holds 1 terabyte worth of Aramco data. It remains unclear who is behind the ransom plot. Senator Rand Paul says he's planning to ask the Justice Department for a criminal referral over Dr. Anthony Fauci's testimony about gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab in China. NTD's Allison Lee has that story.
Republican Senator Rand Paul wants a criminal investigation into Dr. Anthony Fauci for what he considers lying to Congress, and he plans to ask the Department of Justice for it. He explained the decision to Fox News host Sean Hannity late Tuesday night.
We have scientists that will line up by the dozens to say that the research he was funding was gain of function. There's still some conjecture as to whether or not it came from the lab, but he's lying about whether or not he funded gain of function research, and yes, he should be punished.
Paul is referring to a Senate hearing earlier Tuesday when the two clashed over the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
This research matches, these are Dr. Ebright's words, this research matches, indeed epitomizes, the definition of gain-of-function research, done entirely in Wuhan. Do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Microphone.
Your microphone.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function.
People convicted of lying to Congress can face up to 5 years in prison. The NIH defines gain-of-function experiments as scientific research that increases the ability of any of these infectious agents to cause disease by enhancing its pathogenicity or by increasing its transmissibility among mammals by respiratory droplets. The NIH had paused funding for certain gain-of-function research from 2014 to 2017. After the pause was lifted, the agency said that such research is important in helping them identify, understand, and develop strategies and effective countermeasures against rapidly evolving pathogens. Allison Lee, NTD News.
The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, or USOPC, is coming under fire for denying a deaf and blind swimmer a trusted personal care assistant in Japan. Because of this, the swimmer has withdrawn from the team. Here are the details.
26-year-old Paralympic swimmer Becca Myers has withdrawn from Team USA ahead of the Tokyo Paralympics, following a decision to deny her request for a trusted personal care assistant. Born with Usher syndrome, Myers has been deaf since birth and gradually lost her eyesight. But this hasn't stopped her from being a 6-time Paralympic medalist, winning 3 gold medals in 2016. Myers said the USOPC denied her request to bring a trusted personal care assistant because an assistant will be on staff in Tokyo. Myers noted that this single assistant is to help 34 Paralympic swimmers, including 9 that are visually impaired. The USOPC told the Washington Post they're dealing with unprecedented restrictions in Tokyo, noting that the government of Japan is not permitting any personnel other than operational essential staff with roles related to the overall execution of the games into the country. But Myers says she feels her needs and rights as a disabled person are being ignored. Her story has sparked sympathy and condemnation from fans, advocates, and several politicians. Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan is calling on the USOPC to ensure that every athlete can compete at this summer's games.
Parents are coming together over shared concerns about the state of education in the U.S. And one grassroots organization called Moms for Liberty is growing rapidly. These moms are on a mission to fight for the survival of America and unite parents. NTD's Grace Coulter has that story.
This is my first time appearing before you.
For many parents across the country, 2020 was an eye-opener.
Parents are awake. They're awake and they're paying attention, and they're not going to accept this for their children.
Remote learning allowed parents to see what their children are really being taught, things like pseudo-Marxist critical race theory or age-inappropriate sexual education. Remote learning and school mask mandates made many parents feel their children's mental and emotional well-being was being neglected, and grades are also slipping.
And so we felt that it was time for a real organized grassroots effort across the country, and moms are answering back loudly.
And thus, Moms for Liberty was born. Florida moms and former school board members Tiffany Justice and Tina Deskovich started up the grassroots organization in January to help parents reclaim their parental rights. And in just over 6 months, Moms for Liberty has grown to 65 chapters in 24 states, with over 20,000 members.
The best thing about Moms for Liberty is that they're making it their own. This fight has to be fought in their own backyard. They have to know who their school board members are, how their school board works, what the agendas are, what issues are most pressing.
For California mom Jennifer Griniger, that issue is mask mandates. Her 8-year-old son has special needs, so wearing a mask all day is out of the question. And in California, the mandate now extends to this upcoming school year.
And so a lot of families are not on board with that. They're not okay with their child in a mask for that length of time. And they're really looking to start forming private teaching pods. And that's one of the things that our chapter is focusing on right now.
For Tennessee mom of 3, Robin Steelman, that pressing issue is critical race theory type teachings being taught in her school district. That's why she started a local Moms for Liberty chapter in April. This is a key issue for many moms across the country.
We are not opposed to teaching truthful history. We are opposed to labeling people as oppressors and victims solely based on the color of their skin.
In May, Steedman's chapter organized a community event with guest speakers called CRT 101 to raise awareness. Around 450 people attended.
Literally in about 3 to 4 weeks, we went from educating our members to the school board to the community. And since then, our mission has evolved even more to taking on the curriculum.
All 3 moms said the fight for children's education and well-being is bringing parents together from across the aisle.
You know, I talked to moms, they said they're single-issue voters now. They have no allegiance to a party. They want to know, do you care about my child? Are you going to help them get back to school? And are you going to promise me that you're going to teach them what they need to know so that they're going to be successful in life? And, you know, I think for parents, we know the time is now. We're ready to reset the boundaries.
And as far as with our group alone, I've got, parents, grandparents, dads from all over that, they're coming to the defense of their children. That's the bottom line. When you mess with a child, then you picked a fight with the mom or the dad or the grandparent. And there's few bonds, if any, that are stronger than that.
She describes it as waking the lions, and with more parents joining Moms for Liberty and getting involved with their local school boards every week, this pack of Mama Lions is only growing stronger. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Republican lawmakers introduced a bill today targeting colleges that provide abortion pills to students. The legislation is a response to California's abortion pill mandate on campuses. NTD's Lynn Lynn has the details.
The Protecting Life on College Campus Act of 2021 was introduced by Senator Steve Daines and Representatives Mary Miller and Chip Roy, co-sponsored by over a dozen Republican senators. The bill aims to prohibit college clinics from providing abortions or abortion drugs on campuses. Any college or university doing so wouldn't get federal funds. The bill comes as a direct response to California's abortion pill mandate on college campuses. Starting in 2023, California is set to require 34 public universities to stock abortion medication. More than 400,000 women attend public universities in California.
The reality is, Girls that are getting these drugs are left to deal with the consequences and severe potential side effects all on their own.
Several Republican-led states have passed laws banning fetal heartbeat abortions, but the courts knocked many of those laws down or temporarily blocked them. Lin Lin, NTD News.
The U.S. borders with Canada and Mexico will remain closed through August 21st. The U.S. government extended the closure today. On Monday, Canada announced it will start reopening its borders to fully vaccinated U.S. visitors on August 9th for non-essential travel. However, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security extended travel restrictions for another month. The U.S. borders with Mexico and Canada will remain closed through August 21st. The DHS said they are constantly discussing how to ease travel restrictions safely and sustainably with the Canadian and Mexican governments. And coming up, a tragic loss of life. An Oklahoma miner dies after trying a challenge that was circulating on TikTok. And now a study uncovers more about how the social media site figures out what posts to put in front of you. And a Texas city is on high alert. Explosion and fire warnings were issued after a chemical tanker was found to be releasing a reactive chemical. More in just a moment here on NTD News. A 12-year-old boy in Oklahoma tragically died after attempting a blackout challenge that was circulating on social media site TikTok. This while a new investigation reveals how the site finds out your interests. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more.
At around midnight on Monday, first responders were called to an apartment in an Oklahoma City suburb over an unresponsive miner. NBC affiliate KFOR reported that the boy died the next day after attempting a blackout challenge that was circulating on TikTok. The challenge is when a person chokes themselves until they pass out. Officers found signs of strangulation on the boy's neck. Amid the tragedy, TikTok has been pulling videos of the challenge, saying it violates community guidelines. Police are now warning parents about dangers to teens and children that are circulating online. What's more about TikTok is that an investigation by the Wall Street Journal reveals how the site tracks what you are interested in. The news outlet discovered that TikTok is tracking you while you browse content and that it records the amount of time you linger over a post. The site says likes, shares, follows, and watched content play a role in the content fed to you, but the Journal study found that only one thing determines the outcome. That is, how long you spend looking at a piece of content. NTD contacted TikTok for comment. TikTok has been criticized in part for pushing overly sexualized content on underage children and dehumanizing beauty by promoting the use of artificial filters. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Our hearts go out to the family members of the boy who lost his life. And a tanker at a chemical plant in Texas could possibly cause a fire or explosion. The city is asking people to evacuate at-risk areas. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on what's happening.
A tanker venting an acrylic chemical called hydroxyethyl acrylate, or HEA, put the Texas city of LaPorte on alert. The county judge says the situation could get explosive, so they're trying to get people out of the area.
There is a handful of homes, around 10 homes in the northern part of the perimeter. The LaPorte Police Department has gone over there home by home already twice, asking them to leave. There's 2 people that refuse to evacuate. Of course, they're not, they can't force them to leave, but they've been very, very clear that folks within that perimeter should leave, need to leave.
Here's a map of those road closures in red and the encircled evacuation area put out by the Office of Emergency Management. The Dow chemical plant in question says it noticed a tanker venting this chemical before 9 in the morning, Central Daylight Time. They say there's been no off-site impact and no injuries. They haven't given us an answer on why this tanker started venting. Air quality is another issue the city says they're looking into.
If we get a reading that is that is not within the normal ranges, we will announce that to the community.
The latest info we have says the situation is still under investigation. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
If you live on the West Coast, then you probably experienced the impact of wildfires in one way or another. Well, this week, those thousands of miles away on the East Coast can see the smoke as well. NTD's Arian Pazdar has that story.
New York City looks rather gloomy today, right? Now you would think that's just clouds and maybe a thunderstorm as usually. But now get this, a lot of that stuff is actually smoke that traveled for over 2,500 miles from the West Coast wildfires all the way to New York City. Now you can definitely see it, it's all around us, but you can't really feel or taste it in any other way. But according to weather stations, it does actually affect the air quality here. New York City isn't the only place along the East Coast impacted by the smoke. If you take a look at this map, you can see that the Big Apple is among the worst hit. But there are layers of smoke from Maine all the way down to South Carolina. What looks like a cloudy day in Washington, D.C. is actually smoke too, according to data. The Washington Monument is harder to see than it normally is, and the city has an air quality index value of 110. Which is considered unhealthy for sensitive groups. Right now, there are over 80 large wildfires burning throughout the nation and more in Canada. The smoke is expected to be cleared up later this week. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Not everyone discovers their talents early on in life. This next story brings us a Texas grandma who became an award-winning painter despite zero training in art.
Tamara Van Horn from San Antonio, Texas, calls herself a super grandma to her 9 grandchildren. When she is not busy running her household, as well as a home building company with her husband, she likes to go on walks with her dogs, and then she paints.
Everything I paint, I've experienced, you know, like the swans and these geese over here. That's a really fun painting because the geese I was kayaking and they just came running right up to my kayak as I was parking it.
Van Horn is completely self-taught. She started painting in 2012, and her second painting won first place in 2 major local art contests.
I feel like God gave me a gift and he wanted me to share it with people. You know, he wants me to show them things. He wants me to, you know, he gives me beautiful things to look at and see, and he wants me to share them with people. Like I have a painting over there, it has an egret, it's called a Guadalupe fisherman. He was posing for me. I swear he was. He was totally just like, oh, look at me. Oh, look at me. Look at me. The whole time. He was not afraid of me. I'm just taking all kinds of pictures.
To Van Horn, painting is also therapeutic. A couple of years ago, her mother, cousin, and 2 children all passed away within a short period of time.
During all that time, I started painting a piece. It was a place on the Guadalupe River where I had actually taken all of them. Believe it or not, all of them. Every single one of them had gone to that location with me. I decided to name it Beside the Still Waters of the Guadalupe because it was like a tribute piece to all those people that I had lost.
Despite hardships in life, Van Horn maintains a positive outlook on life.
I believe if you're doing good things, God provides for you, and he knows where your heart is. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you just have to be patient, and you know, they don't happen all at once, you know, and you just have to, you know, just do what you got to do, but listen.
Although most of her paintings are landscape and animals, Van Horn says she is now starting to work on more spiritual and political themed paintings.
I feel like we need to, you know, stand up for what we believe in and stand up for our country and stand up for our rights as citizens.
Van Horn tells NTD she is now working on a piece about human trafficking in Texas.
The Milwaukee Bucks were crowned the NBA champions. They beat the Phoenix Suns in Game 6 last night, 105-98, and Giannis was named the Finals MVP. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
With the Phoenix Suns up 2-0 at home, many thought the Bucks could not pull it off. But Milwaukee went on to win the next 4 games in a row, becoming the next NBA champions. 65,000 fans cheered their team on from outside the arena in Milwaukee. The last time the Bucks won a championship was when Oscar Robertson teamed up with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1971. And 50 years later, Giannis dropped 50 points to win his first championship in Milwaukee. That ties for the most points ever scored in a closeout game to win the NBA Finals. Giannis was also 17 of 19 from the free throw line. And the Phoenix Suns' Chris Paul has a history of losing 4 games in a row after being up 2-0 in a series. The Milwaukee Bucks are saying they're ready to do it again next year. But the Brooklyn Nets might have something to say about that because they were up on the Bucks 2-0 before All-Star point guard Kyrie Irving was injured. The Bucks went on to win that series and the NBA championship. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, a Superior Court judge in California ruled in favor of a talk show host running for governor. He filed a lawsuit challenging the California election officials' decision to block him from running in the state's recall election. And according to recent campaign filings, Congressman Eric Swalwell spent a portion of his campaign money on luxury hotels and alcohol. That and more when we return on NTD News.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Supermarkets are pulling Ben & Jerry's ice cream from their shelves. That's shortly after the ice cream brand took sides in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. NTD's Evelyn Lee spoke to the co-owner of one supermarket chain that's cutting back on Ben & Jerry's.
If you come to Morton Williams to look for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, you might have a bit of a tough time finding it. This is a supermarket chain that's just decided to drastically cut down on its sales of Ben & Jerry's. That's because the brand has taken sides in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ben & Jerry's announced that it will stop selling ice cream in the West Bank and East Jerusalem because it's inconsistent with their values. Now some grocery stores around the U.S. are deciding to pull the ice cream from their shelves. Avi Kainer, co-owner of Morton Williams, calls it a dog whistle for anti-Jewish sentiment. He says the brand is still selling to some other nations with no freedom of speech and religion.
If you look at all the countries in the world, Ben & Jerry's chose the one Jewish nation in the world to target.
Kainer told NTD that Morton Williams decided in a board meeting to radically cut down on their sales of Ben & Jerry's and stop 100% of all promotional activities with the brand.
We're immediately reducing our product place of Ben & Jerry's by 70%. We're stopping placing new orders. We're selling out what we have, and we will keep only one or two shelves at the bottom, depending on the size of the store.
Danny Sachemsky is the owner of Glad Express, a kosher supermarket in New Jersey. He says the supermarket almost immediately decided to drop the ice cream after hearing the news. Although they have more than $1,000 worth of Ben & Jerry's ice cream left over, they will keep it in storage as long as the brand doesn't reverse its decision. One grocery store in South Florida posted an Instagram story that shows a man throwing Ben & Jerry's ice cream in the garbage can. Kainer says he came to the decision because he believes it's the right thing to do, and his supermarket chain has gotten support for it.
We've received thousands of emails and messages from customers thanking us for doing this.
Ben & Jerry's came under pressure online and says it won't renew its license agreement with its Israeli manufacturer. It says it won't serve what it calls Israeli-occupied areas, but it will continue to sell ice cream in Israel. They didn't get back to us in time for broadcast. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Conservative talk show host Larry Elder filed a lawsuit against the Secretary of State for blocking him from running from the upcoming recall election, citing incomplete tax returns. A Sacramento Superior Court judge ruled in his favor, saying Elder is not required to file a tax return as opposed to a primary election. Here's NTD's Eileen Eng with more.
Talk show radio host Larry Elder has filed a lawsuit on Monday challenging California election officials' decision to block him from running in the state's September 14th recall election. Elder, a Republican, entered the gubernatorial race on July 12th to replace Governor Gavin Newsom. But the Secretary of State's office did not include Elder on the preliminary list of 41 candidates issued last weekend. Documents said Elder provided incomplete redacted and/or unredacted income tax returns. In a statement, Elder said he filed all the necessary paperwork to qualify to run in the election. I provided all tax returns as required, totaling over 300 pages. The politicians in Sacramento know I'm the only candidate who can beat Gavin Newsom. They are afraid, and they are using whatever shenanigans they can to try to trip me up. It won't work. He added by stating the Secretary of State's decision is unfair, absurd, and a dangerous and unconstitutional precedent. According to Jonathan Madison, lead attorney at the Madison firm, there's a 50-50 chance the decision will be reversed in time for the election on September 14th.
Generally speaking, this could go on for, far beyond the recall election. What's interesting is if he is right, and we find out he's right either before or after the recall election, and his name is not listed on the ballot, he could have damages to sue against the Secretary of State. He could have a good basis to sue them.
The Secretary of State's office did not immediately respond to an email seeking comment. The recall petition against Newsom is only the second in state history to succeed against a governor. While every governor since 1960 has faced a formal recall petition, the only one with enough signatures to trigger an election was when voters replaced Gray Davis with Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2003. Eileen Eng, NTD News, California.
Campaign expenditures for California Congressman and House Intelligence member Eric Swalwell were recently filed. Over $500,000 was spent, and it appears a portion of it was on luxury hotels and alcohol. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
Congressman Eric Swalwell serves California's 15th district near San Francisco. Campaign finance data from the Federal Election Commission appears to show that thousands of campaign dollars to run for Congress were made towards luxury hotels, limo services, and alcohol. From the second quarter, it appears that over $20,000 were dispersed to the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay. Fox News reported that Swalwell's wife was director of sales at the Ritz-Carlton until 2019. The FEC records also showed his campaign spent over $10,000 for 21 rides from luxury car services and 5 limousine rides. His committee spent nearly $4,400 at 2 California wineries and roughly $1,100 on refreshments from 7 trips to a wine and spirits liquor store. Swalwell did not immediately respond to NTD's request for comments on whether the spending were all campaign-related. He currently serves on the House Homeland Security Committee and its Intelligence and Counterterrorism Subcommittee. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Today, hundreds of Americans met in South Dakota to kick off this year's Freedom Fest. Many described the event as an opportunity to engage in civil discourse and freely share ideas with one another. NTD's Melina Weiskup is there now.
I'm here in Rapid City, South Dakota, where this year's Freedom Fest is happening. Freedom Fest is an event that brings together free thinkers from all over the U.S. Some of the people we spoke to today tell us they believe in and are fighting for limited government, free will, and human rights. A woman we spoke to earlier is a film producer. She says she's currently working on a documentary to expose how the pillars of America, that is truth and free will and faith, are being undermined by socialist and communist ideologies.
As Lenin himself had said, socialism, the goal of socialism is communism. And if we look at what is happening in communist China today, and the persecution and brutality towards people of faith, we have to fight back. We have to understand what the value of freedom and democracy, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all of those freedoms that are being attacked right now, that are being diminished right now under this notion of social justice, which is a fraud.
And a few of the attendees are libertarians. They tell us why they come to Freedom Fest and what they hope to get out of this year's event.
I think the reason most people come is because they want to meet other people that are also thinking. The great part of this festival isn't that you have to think a certain way. It gives you options to understand different categories that seem to align with the way your personal values are.
I'm hoping to spread the message of Cuba, of the people of Cuba are fighting for freedom, and that's what this conference is. It's literally called Freedom Fest, so I'm hoping to gain awareness for people in Cuba and what they're fighting for.
This is really supposed to be a nonpartisan event focused on more social areas such as economics, healthcare, and what it means to live in a free society. In the past, Freedom Fest was held in Las Vegas, but with virus lockdown restrictions making them vulnerable to disruptions, they decided to move to a state that didn't mandate any lockdowns during the virus, that is South Dakota. And this week we will hear from South Dakota's Governor Kristi Noem, as well as many other key speakers such as Senator Mike Lee, J.P. Sears, and James O'Keefe, many speakers and activists such as that. Reporting in Rapid City, South Dakota, Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Faced with unstable milk prices and rising costs, some dairy farms in the United States are going out of business. But others are staying afloat thanks to a creative change, switching to goats. NTD's Colin Frederickson has more.
Inside this barn at the Jonesland farm in Vermont, baby goats burst out bleeding as they wait to be fed. The Jones family, the farm's owners, have been raising dairy cows for 150 years. But in the face of fluctuating milk prices and rising costs, they're making a change.
3 or 4 years ago, we kind of was looking into trying to do something different because for us, cows just weren't working anymore. So we started doing some investigation into goats and spent about 2 years studying it before we decided to do it.
The farm now houses more than 500 goats. Twice a day they walk to the newly constructed nanny milking parlor to be milked. The Jones brothers, Brian and Stephen, delivered their first batch of goat's milk earlier this year to the Land O'Lakes' own Vermont Creamery. They say the goats are easier to raise than cows. The animals require less feed and have a shorter lactation period. That means milking an average of 250 days a year, compared to over 300 days on average for cows.
Goats have a lot more personality than cows do. Very curious, will come up to everybody that walks in the barn and always wants to nibble on something, and just that's their nature.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the country's number of dairy cow farms has fallen by more than half since 2003. At the same time, dairy goat operations have more than doubled between 1997 and 2017. Experts cite one major reason for the growth. That is, America has developed a taste for goat cheese, the soft, semi-ripened chevres.
Within the commercial side, more and more people have definitely approved or become accustomed to using the goat cheese, the goat milk, the kefir, even butter and ice creams and yogurts are definitely made. And it's not a stigmatism for just health food anymore.
On top of that, some people also keep goats for their own milk and as pets. California, Wisconsin, and Iowa are the top U.S. goat dairy states. But the popular and curious animals are popping up more in other states, too.
Coming up, residents in a Chinese city are struggling to survive record-level floods. Hundreds are trapped deep underground in subway cars. And to make matters worse, Chinese authorities released more water from a nearby reservoir. Flood victims are asking why they weren't given a heads up. Find out more here on NTD News. Hundreds in a flooded Chinese city are still in dire conditions. They're trapped inside subway cars with floodwater as high as their chests. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
The capital city of China's Henan province drenched in 24 inches of rainfall since Monday. State-run media reports are focusing on how soldiers are helping residents and the effectiveness of the ongoing rescue work. But netizens posted videos on Chinese social media on Tuesday that paint another picture. One clip showed several people struggling in floodwaters. A woman on the bank is seen crying and seems to be calling for her mother in the water. What's more, a man can be heard saying people are in the water. Several people have drowned. That's as a man waded through the water, tossing a tire in for another person to grab onto. Several others seen washed away by the current. In a shopping mall, water started abruptly falling down from a toy store. On Tuesday, a train passenger captured video of torrential floods outside a train and posted it on Chinese messaging platform WeChat. She described the water as being up to her waist and noted her phone's low battery, saying she didn't know if it would become her last post. Another video shows water coming into the train and later inside a subway. A man who captured this clip said people had been carried out and showed no sign of life. Still, another video features a resident sobbing, asking who will come to rescue them from the severe flooding. This woman captured a drowning victim. Found dead in the water, his body was moved to higher ground. The woman's voice is heard saying she was scared and her hands were shaking. She also explained there was another woman in the water but lost sight of them, and that a man entered the water in search of the woman but couldn't find her. Likewise, on Tuesday, human remains were spotted and retrieved in Zhengzhou City. The person who shot this clip said the body was found to be female, and the apparent casualties, a few lucky ones, were saved. This successful rescue effort was also caught on camera. Citizens there are demanding answers from authorities, questioning why they weren't given a heads up before a move that made an already major disaster much worse. It comes after some passengers found themselves trapped on a dark subway on Tuesday, with floodwaters rising up to their chests. Earlier, a passenger sent a video to the internet asking for help. He says he sensed something wasn't right.
We're now trapped in the subway. The water is rising and it's climbing to our waists. Those seeing the video, please help us call the police.
Videos circulating online show water pouring into the subway station, and it wasn't just the subway. Flooding also submerged much of the local area. In a video, a woman was struggling to escape a water current. As for the subway, the water later receded, and passengers were able to escape, but some never made it past the next stop. Officials capped the death toll at 25 as of late Wednesday. But many are wondering if, had authorities acted otherwise, some deaths could have been avoided. Record-breaking rain drenched the area the day of the accident. To relieve the added pressure on a nearby reservoir, authorities had released some of its water. That reservoir sits about 30 minutes away from the web of affected subway lines. But officials provided no warning before the reservoir adjustment. Beforehand, the subway was running uninterrupted as usual. Authorities finally shut down the subway at around 6 p.m., but by then it was already too late. The water had funneled into the subway tunnels, trapping riders inside. Heavy rainfall in central China's Henan province caused a 66-foot wide breach in a local dam. Chinese soldiers later blasted a gap in the middle of the dam on Wednesday to let the floodwater out. The dam, named Yihetan, is the third to fail in China in recent days. Due to heavy rain, 2 dams in North China's Inner Mongolia collapsed on Sunday. The dam in Henan is located in a city of 7 million. Weather authorities in China also issued the highest level of warning for the region, following record rainfalls in recent days.
And Chinese residents who have become trapped are desperately calling for rescue, both through phone calls and posting online. At the same time, Chinese state-run media announced that all victims have already been brought to safety.
Many residents in central China's Zhengzhou City, Henan province, called for help online during severe flooding on Tuesday, especially the hundreds trapped in the subway system. Chinese media reported that night saying all passengers have been rescued and are all safe. But until early morning, SOS messages from passengers trapped underground kept flooding in, and they didn't see any rescue teams. By Wednesday morning, many people in cars were still seen soaked in water, with no rescue efforts in sight. The most disastrous appears to be Line 5 of the city's subway. The water in the train cars is soaking passengers up to their chests and shoulders. The situation in other subway lines isn't much better. An online post says around 200 people are still trapped in subway line 1 and are calling for rescue. It says the water is very deep now and the emergency rescue line cannot be reached. The post adds that after hours of being stuck in there, people are no longer just cold and hungry, they are also suffocating. And residents also say that people in subway line 2 didn't get any rescue either, so some people tried to get out by themselves. A man that managed to escape on Wednesday morning told NTD that he saw hundreds of cars soaked in water on the streets, but there's no rescue at all.
We swarmed out at 8 this morning. Nobody was there to rescue us. We made hundreds of calls and ended up counting on ourselves. No food, no shelter. But anyhow, we're out. We are now looking for hotels. The water is not receding and the rainstorm continues. There are still hundreds of vehicles there. None of them are out, all trapped. They will die if no one comes to the rescue.
NTD tried calling people trapped underground, but most of the numbers were unreachable.
It's been almost 20 hours, from around 1 p.m. yesterday till 8 this morning. They didn't have anything to eat. I just heard from them saying there's no rescue.
A screenshot of a Chinese chat message circulating online captures the situation. A person trapped inside a subway car said, "I'm still trapped in the subway. There was almost no oxygen just now. We're breaking the window." And the other person in the chat said the news is indeed fake. The news said you're all rescued.
Coming up, France recommends pregnant women take the COVID vaccine, but concerns remain there's a lack of data to prove it's safe. And Britain's Royal Swan Census returns after a year-long hiatus. Participants catch, weigh, measure, and check the swans for disease before releasing them back into the River Thames. Find out more in just a moment here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
In France, the health minister is encouraging pregnant women to get vaccinated. But just 6 months ago, they were not advised to receive the shot. No study or data has backed this change in recommendation. NTD's David Vives has more from Paris.
Should pregnant women get vaccinated against the CCP virus? According to French Health Minister Olivier Véran, pregnant women are safe to be vaccinated and should do so as soon as possible. He made the comments on July 20th, but he also said a few hundred pregnant women would be exceptional cases and should not get vaccinated. At a press conference Wednesday, Member of Parliament Martine Vonner said she felt shocked at Véran's decision.
One of the vaccine manufacturers is conducting a study with pregnant women, so we don't have a study yet. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. As a doctor, I just cannot believe it.
The health minister did not quote any studies to back the safety of vaccination for pregnant women. WHO and CDC support this recommendation. But once again, the data are limited. In an interview on June 4th, WHO communications head Vismita Gupta-Smith said pregnant women should get vaccinated as the benefits outweigh the risk. However, the vaccine was not recommended by the WHO to pregnant women or women wishing to get pregnant before April. Alexandra Aramco is a geneticist and the former director of research at a French government health agency. She says no study has been released so far on COVID vaccines' safety in pregnancy.
I don't understand, and this is only very unusual practice that we are facing, in the sense that whether for the children, whether for the pregnant women, we have so little month of observations.
Aramco says the lack of data is very concerning.
How did they reach to that recommendation now? I am very uncomfortable with it. I have seen that you have a lot of spontaneous abortion in a ratio that is never reached normally. So there is something peculiar taking place.
The French Parliament is expected to pass a bill Thursday that will require mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers and enforce the use of health passes for the general public. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse crowds protesting against CCP virus vaccinations in Athens on Wednesday.
About 1,500 people took part in the protest outside the Greek parliament. It's the second protest in a week against the country's vaccination push. A rally last Wednesday drew more than 5,000 people, some of them waving Greek flags and wooden crosses. The protests were prompted by a government decision earlier in July, ordering the mandatory vaccination of healthcare workers and nursing home staff. The government has suggested other groups, such as teachers, may need to be vaccinated in the fall. Infections in Greece have been rising in recent weeks, and authorities reported almost 3,000 new cases on Wednesday, bringing the total since the pandemic began to over 460,000 people. More than 12,800 have died.
Britain's Royal Swan Census is back on the River Thames, a year after it was put on hold due to the pandemic. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The tradition dates back to the 12th century, originally a way for the monarchy to ensure a supply of swan meat to serve at feasts and banquets. These days, Britain's swan census is carried out for conservation purposes.
We've seen more problems with shootings of swans in the lockdown period than we've ever seen before, and we've had pollution problems which has been higher than ever before. So we have had quite a few problems.
During swan upping, cygnets, or young swans, are plucked from the water, measured, weighed, checked for disease, and marked with a number. Data from the census is collected to assess the growth of the swan population.
Until the end of this week, we won't know all the data. I mean, we're collating it now. We're only sort of a quarter of the way through, so it's not very far yet.
Last year's count was cancelled due to the pandemic, and the swans have faced increased threats, with more people spending time by riversides as an escape from lockdowns.
Since lockdown, we faced a lot of shootings, quite a lot at the beginning of lockdown. It still happens, the shootings are still happening, but not as bad as it was at the start. And at the moment, our biggest problem is pollution. We're having a lot of cooking oil incidents, diesel in the river.
Other hazards include getting caught in fishing gear or being attacked by dogs. but the event's return has been exciting.
Going up the river again is absolutely brilliant, and of course all the men enjoy it. It's hard work, as you can see. It's a wonderful day, but it's very, very hot, so it is hot work, but it's good, and we're looking after the population of swans.
Last year was just the second time the annual count had been cancelled in centuries. The event even went ahead during World War II. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.